Hello. Welcome to the Beyond Jiu Jitsu podcast. My name's Adam Childs with Kieren Lefebvre, episode 99. I have taken over because Kieren is sad. Today we're talking about no time limit matches, competitions, jiu-jitsu, and our thoughts about it.
Yes.
Kieren, how do you feel? No time limit jiu-jitsu.
With the way I feel about no time limit matches is, the idea is good. The execution can be shit because let's think about it logically. If you have no time limit at all, in theory, the match could just indefinitely continue until someone dies. Forever, literally. In theory. Obviously, that's probably not going to happen. I think that, after 3 hours, something should probably happen. But yeah, you can have a 3-hour match.
Well, we did recently.
Yeah, it can be very boring, right?
Yeah, so the most recent sort of no time limit matches, submission. So they're not just submission only. They're submission only in the really of the, I don't want to use the word pure, but that's really submission only in the sense that that's the only way the match ends, right? Other submission only comps will still have like a 20-minute time limit, submission only. They're just saying there's no points, right? And if there's no submission, it would be declared a draw. So these submission only no time limit matches are how the Who's Next reality TV show is being run, right? I haven't watched any of those episodes just because I'm not into any forms of reality TV, but I have heard good things about the show. I've got lots of students who watch it and think it's really cool. But there was one match on there. Let me bring up the exact time that it went for. If people have watched the show, they'll know what I'm talking about. But the longest match on the show was, where is it? Have you watched any of the show, Kieren?
No.
Is that because you don't have flow grappling or you're not into?
I think it's free. I think
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So that was my excuse for not watching it previously. Is I don't have flow grappling. But then I was told by Anthony, no, you don't need it. It's free on YouTube or like free on flow grappling. It's not behind a paywall. It's like, oh, yay.
Right. I need a new
I'm with
excuse.
you, man. I don't really.
Yeah, I'm just not into reality TV. Sorry.
It can be cool, but
I thought I had this bookmarked. Anyway, there was a 3-hour match, 3 hour and something. I can't remember the exact length, but it was a 3-hour match of jiu-jitsu. And now the finals coming up. It's also the same card that Gordon Ryan is fighting Pedro Moreno in. It's that same card, but Kyle Chambers and Isaac Mitchell are fighting. And just to put into perspective, Isaac's throughout the show, his longest match was like 42 minutes or something.
Yeah, I just read that.
And
his shortest was like 4 minutes.
Yeah, something like that. And Chambers had his longest was a 92-minute match against Andrew Tackett. But yeah, it's a long time. And prior to that, there was back in 2016, I think, there was Gordon Ryan did a no time limit match with Keenan Cornelius that was like an hour and a half or something that Gordon ended up winning. But before that, this was even before your time, when Keenan was first coming up as like a purple brown belt, he was still training at Lloyd Irvin's gym. Have you heard of that gym or not really?
I've heard the name.
So it was a gym that became super famous mainly because of Keenan, right? Because Keenan was so successful and people they would make it onto the podium and they would do like this with their hands, like Lloyd Irvin.
Yeah, right.
And then it kind of fell from grace because there was a student or something from the gym who had sexually assaulted someone.
I was thinking sex scandal. Tell me sex scandal.
Yeah, and I think at that same time, Keenan left and distanced himself from it. But anyway, when he was a brown belt, they did this. It was kind of like it would have been a very raw version of Who's Next. Kind of like how there was, I think it was called Real TV or something like that. It was like the first reality TV show before Big Brother came along. It was kind of like they did this one, I think it was called the Kumite or something like that. And it was all these people. Gary Tonin was even in it, right? Back when he was a brown belt, and it was this submission only thing. It was kind of like everyone against Keenan sort of deal. I believe Keenan ended up winning it, right?
Of course.
But yeah, so that was the kind of the first real no time limit thing. And then there was the Gordon and Keenan match. But now there's this who's next. And my thoughts on no time limit is, I don't know, I feel about the same as I do about a no time limit podcast episode. It's fucking shit. I'm not into it for a few reasons, and we'll go into that. Firstly, I don't think it's entertaining. I do not want to watch a 3-hour jiu-jitsu match. Like sometimes even a 10-minute match is super boring. I don't want to watch 3 hours of a jiu-jitsu match, you know. But the other, I just don't get the arguments for it. Okay, so there's quite the common argument that people make for these no time limit matches is that it's, you know, it's jiu-jitsu in its purest form. I think that's just such a crap argument. Like, I don't even get how people think that a no time limit match is jiu-jitsu in its purest form.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Does it make any sense to you? Like, what is pure about a no time limit jiu-jitsu match?
I think maybe the argument would be if hypothetically you had a situation where two jiu-jitsu athletes that, by the way, can only do jiu-jitsu were like fighting to the death, then that would be a simulation of that.
But then why not just say a no time limit boxing match is the purest form of boxing?
I think maybe you could say that. Because some people have said something similar in the MMA realm. Like people say about MMA that there should be no cage, it should be in an open field with no time limit. And you go until someone wins.
Stupid.
I have to agree. I think that the constraints of the sport, or like the rule set and the constraints, the time limits, the rounds, the points, the cage or the mat space, that is part of what makes the sport entertaining, because you need some form of rules and constraints for it to be a sport. Otherwise, it's not.
That's right. Yeah. Otherwise, you just grab a chair and whack someone with it.
Yeah, but it's sort of, sports need rules, and that's what makes sports entertaining. Take tennis, for example. If you said tennis should be on an open field with a giant net and, to make tennis in its purest form, no time limit. Yeah. It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, imagine
it's not tennis anymore.
Tennis in its purest form, there is no net. Yeah, but then
what's the point? What's the objective? What's the goal? Like, where's the strategy? So, I mean, I get it, but I don't.
I think
necessarily agree.
I'm going to bring up some other ones, but that's the main argument people make, and they reference that, back in the Gracie Challenge days, but that was also, you can't simulate those days anymore. When we spoke about, grappler versus striker, it's like you can't simulate that anymore because those individual styles almost really don't exist. But they would do these no time limit things, and they would, I think they talked about like Helio Gracie being like the smaller guy, he would just be super defensive and just drag people into like deep territories of exhaustion and then submit them and whatever. So like, I get it. And I get it like when you're saying like in its purest form, as in it was a battle to the death, but it's not a fucking battle to the death, Like, I mean, if then, so why can you say, oh, it's pure to take away the time limit, but it's not pure to allow, no time limits makes it pure unless you do this particular illegal move that's against the rules. It's not pure anymore, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like now you're disqualified.
Well, it's tainted. It's
right?
tainted.
Right.
Yes.
And saying that no time limit is then its purest form also insinuates that it's then specifically like an endurance sport. Like, I mean,
can be, yeah.
I mean, what about running? Like, then do you just say, okay,
A marathon is the running. Is running's purest form.
No, not a marathon. Running until there's one person left standing is the purest form. You know, you run until there's 100 competitors, not until 99 of them have collapsed from exhaustion.
Yeah.
That's the purest form of running.
Could be.
What's the purest form of long distance running? That's for sure. Like, so if you had different categories of like endurance jiu-jitsu or something like that, you know, but
I think that the people are attracted to it because, you know, the idea of it is there has to be a winner. There is no ambiguous nature to it. Take, for example, if there was a 30-minute match and one of the competitors' strategy was to stall and get up on points and stall. And we see that in the elite levels of even IBJJF worlds, and they're 10-minute. You know, they get up on points or even an advantage in some of these fucking matches, and then they stall. And that's their legitimate strategy. Stall long enough to not get DQ'd. We even saw that at a local comp. 2 black belt athletes were just stalling, and then eventually someone got DQ'd for stalling.
Yeah.
So I think that the idea is to stop people from gaming the system in that manner. I mean, yes, you can stall in a no time limit match, but I mean, the argument could be made that it might not be the best strategy if your opponent is hunting for the submission, because eventually the best defense is a good offense. So maybe the idea behind it being at the purest form is at the end of it, there must be a winner.
I get that argument that at the end there will be
a submission,
a winner declared, you know, and
by a submission. Yeah,
that's right. You know, I get that argument for it, but
at what cost?
Yeah, I mean, how many people literally want to sit down and watch the one match that goes for 3 hours?
Oh man, only the jiu-jitsu purists.
Yeah, you know, yes.
You have to be very pure to watch the purest form of jiu-jitsu.
Like you've got ways of people stalling or gaming the system, but there are other ways to break a tie. There's plenty of ways that sports deal with tiebreakers.
Yeah.
You know, so EBI had their version of overtime. Football, as in soccer, has penalties, or they have like golden goal. Ice hockey has like shootouts or overtime. You know, there are plenty of ways.
ADCC even has extra time.
Yeah, there's plenty of ways to then deal with there not being a winner after the time. So there will still always be a winner, you know, and whether you then make the overtime be like EBI where you start in whatever position, or whether it's like ADCC where it's just extra time, or whether you have it, you know, like hockey is where it's extra time but next goal wins, like you have extra time but next point scored wins the match. I don't know. There's plenty of ways you could do it without us having to sit and watch a 3-hour match of jiu-jitsu.
Totally agree.
You know, and you know, because some of the other arguments talk about, you know, when people are exhausted and they're physically tired and mentally tired, that's when the purest true jiu-jitsu can be seen. It's like, yeah, but it's a physical sport. Like, if you want to make that argument, then why not we just make, you know, our jiu-jitsu match essentially be a freaking game of Dungeons and Dragons, or, you know, and I say, okay, I'm going to execute move ABC. I counter said move with blah, blah. Now we're just playing fucking Yu-Gi-Oh or some shit, you know, like
playing Jugo.
Yeah. You know,
Google Jugo.
Yeah, Jugo JT's a jiu-jitsu card game, which is a great idea, by the way, but it's not in place.
Instead of.
It's not instead of, right?
The replacement
not dumping shit on Jugo. Like there's nothing wrong with a jiu-jitsu card game. But I'm just saying, you know, if the argument is you only see real jiu-jitsu once you strip away. Yeah, because one of the other arguments I read was that as exhaustion kicks in, people's physical attributes are stripped away. It's like, yeah, but that's part of it because it's a physical sport, you know? If a tennis player's strongest, you know, attribute they have is how their footwork and their agility, and then you say, yeah, but it's not real tennis until you take away their agility. Well, that's fucking stupid. You know, like it's part of the sport. It's a physical sport, and saying that you don't see the purity in it until the physical aspect of it is essentially removed, then it may as well just be a theoretical match. And I like that thought train from a theory side of jiu-jitsu, you know, like we used to do in Brazil, not often, but sometimes we would do like just part of a warm up sort of thing would be like one level below a flow roll. So you would kind of you would take it in turns, almost like it was a game of chess. So I would get to make one or two moves, whatever the number would be. So I might go like step back, stuff the leg, headquarters. And then you would make your move and you maybe elevate into X guard. And then I would do my move. And so it's like a way to physically strategize and warm up and whatever.
Cool.
So I like the thought experiment of that, but putting it into practice and arguing that it's not until you strip all that back that you see pure jiu-jitsu. It's like, no, well, you see like theoretical jiu-jitsu, but you can't remove the physical part of the sport.
Yeah. And I think that the athletes are going to behave a lot differently. Like their jiu-jitsu will be different. If you put two athletes in and you say there's no time limit, it's whoever the first sub wins. They're going to roll very differently than if you said you have 10 minutes sub only.
Yeah, that's
and then
right.
Otherwise we go to overtime. They're going to be completely, it's going to be a completely different match. And you'll see that in the gym. Most gyms, I would assume, do some form of submission only from time to time. And if you haven't, well, try it. But last night we did Shark Tank. So someone was in the middle. You have 30 seconds. A fresh person comes in every 30 seconds. You have 5 seconds in between just to reset. The person in the middle stays in the middle. And it was a guard retention Shark Tank. So someone's coming in. Their goal is they have 30 seconds to pass at all costs. They're semi-fresh. So, it's a blitz, right? Your strategy in that is very different to immediately after that we did submission only. And even you highlighted that immediately people slowed down. People, treated it like more of an endurance sort of match because it's like, okay, I just need to get the submission. I want to be aggressive but not get submitted myself, so I'm going to take things methodically. Whereas in the Shark Tank, it was a freaking blitz because you had 30 seconds. That same mentality is going to be applied to these top-level athletes. If you put them in an ADCC format and they have 20 minutes, like a super fight, like they have 20 minutes with some overtime, or they have an unlimited amount of time, the strategy is going to be completely different.
Yeah. And, I'm not saying, okay, so up until now, it sounded like I'm against no time limit matches, and I'm against them in the sense that, I don't think it's the argument to say it's the purest form of jiu-jitsu is bullshit because we're talking about a sport, not about fighting to the death, right? Because then if you're talking about fighting to the death, like, then even MMA isn't pure because then you're going to be saying, well, I'm going to be kicking you, Krav Maga's the most pure, whatever, right? So I'm just saying, so I disagree with that argument. But if people want to do no time limit matches, that's fine. I just don't think they're entertaining. The same way that, let's take running, for example. I'm not really into running, but I'll happily sit and watch the 100 meter or 200 meters or even the 400 meters in the Olympics or whatever.
Yeah, because there's less than a minute of your time.
But I'm not going to sit and watch the marathon.
Yeah.
Because I don't
they're still running. An hour later, they're still running.
I don't find it entertaining. And so, like you said at the start, it's the constraints of a sport and the rules of the sport that make it entertaining because then you have to play to those rules. And, whether you want to have a submission only rule set, there still needs to be a time limit, in my opinion, to make it entertaining at least. And then you have, whether you have overtimes or not, because if you were preparing for a no time limit match, your approach and the way you train would be very different to if you're preparing to a 10-minute match or if you're going into masters where it's 5-minute matches, right? It's not a lot of time. So you can, the same way a runner trains differently for a 100-meter sprint than they do for an 800-meter, right? Like it's very different. So they're the same sport, but different categories, different disciplines almost.
I think I'm okay with no time limit matches as long as not so long as I'm not going to put restraints, but I think that they serve a purpose in being like exhibitions or something like that. You know what I mean? Like instead of being like, the finals for ADCC and now no time limit. I wouldn't really support that. I know some people want, the sport to move in that direction or whatever, but I don't think it's very practical. I don't think from a business point of view, it's very intelligent. From streaming, like you said, people are going to get bored.
Yeah,
people are going to turn it off.
I read this is a good sentence. sub-only, no time limit is the purest way to determine who is the better grappler and damn near the worst format for a competition.
Totally agree.
And like,
that's really, really well put.
You know,
That's well put. Yeah, I have to agree with that.
Yeah, I think there needs to be, the rules are there to help. You have to have a sandbox to play in, you know, and just if there's no time limit, then why not just say no rules at all?
Yeah, it's a little bit redundant, and people are going to stop watching. It'll be boring as shit.
Yeah. And what if we go in, and what if, you know, your strategy is to, like Helio Gracie's strategy, your strategy is just to be super defensive and just wait me out. You're just, actually it's funny, orcas have a little bit off topic, right? But orcas, you probably know, are known as
killer whale.
Yeah, killer whale, and known as being like one of the most intelligent animals in the world. And different orcas around the world, like completely different pods, have developed different like hunting techniques, right? So, for example, there's the orcas that you've probably seen is quite famous. This one particular family that they essentially beach themselves. Have you seen them?
Yeah.
They come up in the shallow water, beach themselves to get the seals, right? But then unbeach themselves. There's other orcas that have figured out that if you turn sharks upside down, it like hypnotizes them, so they'll actually turn the shark upside down so they can kill it. But there's also orcas who hunt dolphins, and the way they hunt them is they just relentlessly follow them until the dolphin gives up from exhaustion. The dolphin can't keep swimming anymore.
Wow.
And so imagine if you had that strategy for a match. The Helio Gracie, man, I'm
hunting dolphins, baby.
Yeah, bro. I don't care. This could take 4 fucking days. I'm an ultra marathon runner in a jiu-jitsu format, but I have the exact same strategy. And you and I just sit there in closed guard. Like it just becomes like one of those, you know, those competitions that you see, you know, in the US in a shopping mall or something, and it'll be like, you know, you got to have your hand on the car, and the last person whose hand on the car wins the car.
They're ridiculous.
You know, and you and I are just sitting there in closed guard, actually not doing anything. It's like, you know, I got nowhere to be, Kieren. I'll be here all fucking day, right? Like,
my week has been cleared.
You know, obviously that's taking it to the extreme, right? But
you could have that situation.
I think it's the restraints of it's the rules set in place that allow for the sport to be fun and entertaining, and you know, you got to draw the line somewhere. You know, the purest form of tennis is when there are no lines. There is no in and out. You know?
The lines are holding us back, bro. Yeah, totally.
You know, but so I don't know if I've mentioned it before on one of our episodes, but I have this, what I think would be a real good, entertaining way to structure a competition if you wanted it to be the most entertaining, which is, let's just pick some arbitrary numbers. Let's say it's a 20-minute match and it still has standard points, right? Like even ADCC, which is let's say the more entertaining rule set, definitely promotes a lot of entertaining fights.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Definitely agree.
Although in saying that, Gordon Ryan versus Buchecha at last ADCC was dog shit boring. But that's also very common when you have the highest of like the two top guys. There's so much respect for each other that it can often be quite a boring match. But even ADCC has a point system. So I think the points as well are important for competition because it, you know, gives consequences to certain movements or positions that otherwise without a consequence can be implemented and create boring fights. So you have, let's say, a 20-minute match, and just to make it mathematically easy, and sorry if I have mentioned this on another episode and I'm repeating myself, but you have a 20-minute match. If it goes the full time limit and there's no submission, there's a winner determined by points. Well, if the points are tied, I don't know, maybe an overtime or rest decision, doesn't matter, right, for the point I'm trying to make. But then you say, okay, let's say you win the 20-minute match on points, you get whatever, 10 grand. That's your prize money. But then to give you an incentive to aggressively hunt submissions, you then have a submission bonus. So if you then win by submission, you get your 10 grand for winning and you get an extra 5 grand for winning by submission. But then to give you motivation to, relentlessly hunt submissions, and one of the best motivators, especially in a growing sport like this where people are trying to make a living from it, is money. So then you go, okay, for each minute left on the clock, right? If you win by submission, for each minute left on the clock, you get a bonus grand. So then someone, submits their opponent at the 8-minute mark. They got 10 grand for winning. They got 5 grand for winning by submission. There was 12 minutes on the clock. So then they get a bonus 12 grand, as if that wouldn't motivate people to go out and be like, I want a submission in minute 1, bro.
Yeah.
So I get 10 plus 5 plus 19 grand that's left on the clock.
You could be bankrolled for this comp.
Yeah, I know. Well, those numbers are just, you know what
made
I mean?
up. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Tell me that would not motivate these young, hungry people who want to make a living in the sport to fucking,
Yeah, I like it. So
but
you can
then
have
there are still consequences of just being, those ones that I think it was Meta Morris had the fights that were submission only, and they were 20-minute matches. And if there was no submission, it was declared a draw, right? Those are boring because it was Andre Galval fought Hannah Gracie, was it? Those Hannah and Kieren, those brothers from Gracie University. And anyway, it was declared a draw. If you were to pick a winner, you would say Andre Galval won, but there was no submission or anything. But then even after the fact, like Hannah said something along the lines of, but if we were in a regular competition where I have to worry about points, he may well have submitted me, because then I would have been concerned about the hooks going in because I wouldn't have wanted to concede the points, and that may have exposed my neck. And then, so having other consequences like points for certain positions, I think also
creates opportunities.
Yeah, and makes the fight more exciting.
Yeah.
So, if you had that sort of structure, like I said, with the prize money or whatever, there's also, if it goes the 20 minutes, it's not like you go, oh, well, at least I didn't get submitted, so it's a draw, we both win. It's like, no, there's still a point system, right? So I think having points as another problem, like it's more problems for you to deal with. If your only problem in a match is, if the only consequence you have in a match is submission, right? Submission is the only way I lose. There's the only way shit gets bad for me is a submission. It's only one problem you have to deal with. If you have points and everything as well, there's lots of other problems you have to deal with, and it makes it more entertaining.
Like you might be happy to sit on bottom in mount, but if there's points, there's no fucking way you want to be on bottom of mount because you just lost points.
Yeah.
Lost 4 points, and then, whatever, if they pass your guard in that process, it's...
So I think the more consequences, the more entertaining.
Yeah, totally.
Right? I mean, ADCC does that. You have consequences for pulling guard once points kick in or in the finals. And they do that. Why? To make it more entertaining so people can't pull guard and they're forced to wrestle. And, judo does it as well with all their rules for grips and stuff because it's more entertaining to see someone get flipped through the air.
Yeah.
That's what people want to see. And I'm not advocating for jiu-jitsu going the judo route because in my opinion, judo went too far with trying to make it entertaining. Yeah. But
yeah, I think as soon as it becomes an Olympic sport, that's when it goes downhill.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a whole nother kettle of fish once it's an Olympic sport.
Yeah. One thing I do like about ADCC with their rule set is that they bring a little bit more realism. For example, in IBJJF, mat space is a big part of strategy, like maintaining, and managing your mat space. Take takedowns, for example. I know that you've been on the brute end of this. You secure a takedown on your opponent, but the takedown was outside the mat area, so you don't get the points.
Yeah, I've lost actually. Probably, I'm not someone who was on the verge of winning black belt worlds or anything like that, but I definitely lost
important matches.
Important match. I remember at Pans to make it to like the top of the podium. Yeah, to make it into the finals. Well, sorry, I was in the semifinals, but to make it into the final at blue belt at Pans, I lost matches for both at weight and absolute for sweeps / takedowns landing outside the area. And as well at black belt masters, I was going to make the finals and I lost 2 sweeps in the one match that went like a millimeter out of bounds.
Yeah.
So it can be frustrating.
That's what I don't like about the constraints of the match.
Whereas ADCC, they let you throw your partner through the TV, bro.
Yeah,
through
the table, son. Yeah, but literally at ADCC trials, I may have mentioned this, but some of the matches, they were when people are hunting submissions, they're gonna stop it. So they were on the floorboards right up against the wall, and this dude was still hunting for a rear naked choke, and the ref was just like, everyone move, let it happen. They're gonna because in a sense that in my mind is a little bit more of a pure form of jiu-jitsu, not to be like, oh, you went out the yellow fucking box, stop, come in the middle, reset into this position that I determine. It's too, in my opinion, you can do too much to like game the system and be a fucking, it promotes behavior and strategy that I don't think is truly aligned with the values of jiu-jitsu, and people like always positioning themselves on the edge of the mat so that if you take them out, they always take out outside the mat. I don't like that. I don't like that gamesmanship.
Yeah, I wonder about, I haven't put a lot of thought into, whether there should be like a cage, so to speak, for jiu-jitsu matches. I wonder how that would change things, because then
you could use the wall.
Just the fact that if you shoot or something, you're not going to go out of bounds. It'll just end up against the fence.
But then you could like work your way to the fence like they do in MMA and use the fence to get up. So that's what some people don't like that.
I guess either way, like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly.
That's the only real way around it would be, it's taking place in a big fuck off open field, where you're never going to make it to the edge of it, know?
But if you do, you can use it. Yeah. But then the strategy would be to like run to the edge and then like sit down on the ground, like play guard right up against the wall. Like, come at me, bitch.
Yeah, you run 200 meters and then sit down.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be a strategy. But yeah, I just don't like, it's not that I don't like people, playing to the rule set, because you need to play to the rule set, because I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, because we're just, championing rule sets for that very reason. But I think there should be more consequences. Like, okay, you want to be right near the edge? All right. If I take you down, you're going to get taken down on the wood, and I still get my points.
Yeah, right. It could be something like that.
Yeah. Obviously, we don't want people to get hurt, so that's the primary concern. But ADCC do it pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess you're screwed either way when it comes to rule sets. There's going to be some people will like that particular rule set. Some people won't. But going back to the point of the episode with the no time limits, I think it's such a shit way to consume jiu-jitsu. It's quite a fun way to train. I quite like training with that sort of submission only, no time. Well, there'll be a time limit because I've got places to be.
Yeah.
But like sometimes.
It's like 1 a.m, you're still rolling.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll be in class and go, okay, guys, it's sub only, and that might end up you do a 40-minute roll, but we're just training, right? There's no one there paying money to watch it. We're not selling the sport from an entertainment point of view.
But you do put in consequences. Like I've seen, like some people have been training for rolling for 20 minutes out of the no time limit sub only. And I've had those rolls with tough training partners that have gone for like 20 minutes. And then you say, if there's not a sub in the next 2 minutes, like 30 burpees each or 50 burpees each.
Or something like that.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden there's a sub, it's funny that, eh?
Yeah. Sometimes I'll do, because I typically do that when I'm trying to get through to my students. Like I'm trying to have them switch on the part of their brain that has, I want them to go after it. I want them to really embrace it's this or lose.
Yeah, relentlessly hunt the submission.
Yeah,
always.
So sometimes we'll do, 10-minute rounds, for example, and I'll do something along the lines of, okay, I don't care about points or whatever. It's submission only, so to speak, but you have to have more subs than your partner by the end of the 10 minutes. So, if I sub you twice, but you've also subbed me twice, that would be a draw. And then the consequences of us drawing is at the end of 10 minutes, we both do 10 burpees. However, if you sub me twice, but I subbed you 3 times, I win. So you have to do my 10. In other words, you're going to do 20 burpees, right? So it's not that I like making people do burpees, but sometimes without some type of punishment or consequence, people don't. They can be a little soft and not take the training properly, and not because they don't always really have that. I want to win.
Yeah,
and so
sometimes
if I create an environment where it's like, I don't care if you don't want to win, as long as your hatred for burpees is higher, as you know, you're like, I don't care if I win or lose, I just don't want to fucking do burpees. It's like, okay, well, that means you have to win, right? And you have to sub them more times than they subbed you.
Yeah,
you know,
that's some of my favorite training.
Yeah, I quite enjoy that one. I also like the handicap one where you have to, depending on the belt level of the person you're with.
You have to roll people. No.
Let's
just trail up. I like that as well. It's good. You have to beat them a certain amount of times depending on how many belts above you or below you they are. So, for example, if I was rolling up against a purple belt, I would just need to, if we both had 2 subs each, I would win. They need to get one more than me to win.
No, that would be if it's a blue belt, right? Because you're
they need to get 2 more than me to win. That's my favorite.
Yeah, because you're quite hard to sub, so you typically win those ones.
Yeah, I stall against the belts. Or like I'm
in the corner. Kieren, stall, stall. You've got 9 minutes left. Stall.
I try to just get one and then hold it out.
Yeah. But I mean, we'll see how this who's next final goes. I mean, I've past 20 minutes. I'm pretty like,
I'm pretty bored.
It's same as when you watch particularly happens to the heavyweights in MMA. If they make it into the 5th round and they're just gassed and man, like it's not even fun to watch anymore. You're like, bro, I'm just watching 2 exhausted dudes, lethargically swing at each other.
Yeah.
And so
you see that in ADCC as well in the super fights, like the 20-minute.
You do.
Some of them are real boring. It's like, take for example the Andre Galvao Felipe Penne. That the only interesting thing that happened in that match was when Felipe hit the table, and then the end. That was pretty much it. It's the same thing. They were exhausted by the end of it. They were just resting on each other, sort of thing, and just like whatever.
No matter the rule set, there's always room for a boring match.
Yeah.
But that quote I mentioned before, I'll just read it again, was I think is kind of spot on. With the sub only no time limit is the purest way to determine who is the better grappler and damn near the worst format for a competition.
I could not agree with that sentence any more highly. And I think that summarizes both of our opinions on it. Like,
Yeah, sort of. Yeah,
we would push back on the purist, There's arguments to be made. And I think we spent the last 40 minutes making those. But yeah, I think that I'm okay with it so long as it's, an exhibition and not instead of like the ADCC finals. I don't want to see the ADCC finals with no time limit.
I'd hate to see it.
Increase the time limit.
Just have like multiple overtimes. Or
exactly.
Whatever,
Yeah. Have like maybe 3 overtimes for each at 5 minutes, each with more severe consequences and more difficult to progress.
Yeah.
Maybe if there's no winner after the 3rd overtime, each competitor has to do 100 burpees or like has to do a CrossFit workout. Or,
something,
That's ridiculous. That's stupid, but
Because like I said, imagine if you did then just have 2 people who had were incredibly difficult to submit.
Mm-hmm.
And they just both stalled.
Yep.
And there's no punishment for it because it's no time. There were no consequences other than a submission. And I'm just like, bro, I had 7 coffees and I'm going to poop. So you win, like, or whatever it is,
I need to pee. Yeah. I'm hungry now.
Yeah. People just run it out for however long.
Yeah, I wouldn't sit there and watch a 3-hour grappling match.
Because then, you're saying with time limits, people go, oh, but if I had more time, I would have won. Or then with no time limits, you're going to say, someone saying like, oh, if I wasn't so tired, I would have won.
Exactly.
Like, I mean.
It's always an excuse,
Always an excuse.
And athletes, like we said, they're going to treat it differently. But yeah. No time limits.
It'd be different if, I guess if there was a endurance category for jiu-jitsu, that'd be a whole different thing.
No one would watch it.
I wouldn't watch it. But anyway, if that's what people want to do.
Yeah.
Kieren, what do we got next episode?
Well, if you've been paying attention to the episode number, this is episode 99. Therefore, we've been talking it up. Episode 100, we've got something special planned.
No, we don't.
Shut up, man. They don't know that. They don't know we have nothing.
We have a week to plan something special.
Yes, we have some ideas. So stay tuned for episode 100. It's going to be in a little bit of a different format. We're going to try something, have something a little bit special for the 100th episode. We have some
triple
ideas.
digits.
Triple
Man.
dig. Yeah.
Like as people know, we unfortunately didn't make it all the way to 100 without missing a week because we had a bunch of sicknesses floating around, so we couldn't record. Illness, but that's okay. We still made it. Episode 100. We are still
milestone. That's crazy.
Trucking along. Yeah, I remember when we hit 50 and we were like, hey, little mini milestone.
Yeah.
So we're going to hit episode 100 next week, which will be around about, it'll be released around about
Friday next week.
Yeah, the 22nd or something of July.
Yep.
Somewhere around there. I'm just going to open Spotify and double check when our first ever episode was released because I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, it was like 2021 around September.
So let me just bring it up. Just so we're all on the same page. It was the 11th of August, 2021 was our first ever episode. So episode 100 is almost syncing 2 weeks before, it's almost syncing up with our first ever episode. So 100 episodes in a year.
This is nearly 12 months. That's crazy.
Yeah, coming up to 12 months, 100 episode, mini milestone, pretty cool.
Yeah.
So guys, please tune in for episode 100. If you have any questions, any feedback, anything you want to let us know, you can find us on our Instagram at beyondjiujitsu_podcast. We have our link tree in our bio there if you want more information, yada, yada, yada. We look forward to catching you in episode 100.